I'm Michael Bitar, partner at Produce Global, and this is Cracking the Code. Really excited today, have Andres Rodriguez, president of Talent Curators, joining us. We're going to talk about contingent workforce and the trends that are going on within the contingent workforce. But beyond that, Andres and I have a really cool history. We've worked side by side for the last 9 years, 4.5 of that at Produce, 4.5 of that here since we have relaunched ACE underneath your leadership. So excited to talk about contingent workforce. Welcome, Andres.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on, and pumped to bring a slice of the contingent workforce world onto Cracking the Code.
Yeah, no, this is going to be exciting. So let's just start right there. What are some of the trends that are going on with the contingent workforce, and what is the contingent workforce, Andres?
Absolutely. So the contingent workforce is a bit of an umbrella term to cover every type of of independent worker. So this could be everything from a freelancer all the way to a fractional or interim executive. You hear terms like contractors, independent consultants. They all fall under this umbrella. If it's not a full-time employee, it's a member of the contingent workforce that's applying their skills to an opportunity or a challenge.
Excellent. So you had a vision a few years back, right? So tell a little bit about your story, a little bit about your background, pre-Produce, Produce, and then how we got to where we are today.
Absolutely. So I was recruiting in really all sorts of industries before joining Produce, and got to dabble a bit at that point in the contingent workforce. But the pool of, call it FTE and permanent recruiting was always stronger than was the contingent side. But I noticed the trend growing over time, and it would never take a step back. It was just kind of constant growth and evolution in the adoption of the contingent workforce across all industries. And then I joined Produce in 2014, late 14, and it was just incredible to work in the CPG space, to get to serve clients and work on high impact searches. And I got to touch every category, man. It was so much fun to go to the store and you had things from, Ferrero Rocher and PBR and, Arla cheeses. And it was just so cool to see how our brands and our people translated into these products that we could actually consume. So you could, in a sense, you could taste our work, which was really cool. And so I got bit by the bug at that point, and I became a student of the CPG space. Never got to work in it before recruiting in it, but just being a part of it, being around it and working on those high profile searches across different categories, across different functions, allowed me to learn quite a bit about how the business operated and how it was evolving. And one observation that I made that was probably the biggest sort of voila for the ACE business was that there was a pullback in really brand loyalty, the way that we know it, call it blind brand loyalty, that we grew up with, from iconic brand houses. And it was, maybe 30 years ago, 20 years ago even, folks would go to the grocery store and they'd purchase based on that brand loyalty. Yeah. If it had a certain brand on the label, then it was good to go. It was good for my family. It was a good value. I could feed them and I could trust. And unfortunately, or fortunately, that's evolved over the last 20 years, right? And now the consumer is much more conscientious, right? They're still making emotional decisions at the shelf, but they're also really making decisions. They're backing those emotions with data, with labels. They're looking for, is it a clean label? What claims does it make? What functions does this product offer me? We have the internet to go even deeper if the label doesn't have enough to understand the terms and what those functions and claims mean for my health, for my family. And so that evolution I thought was fascinating and led to what I'm seeing now as a massive disruption in consumer packaged goods. And I think when we look back at the industry over a long period of time, we'll find that this was one of the more disruptive periods in that time, and that smaller brands, more nimble brands that were able to create products that spoke better to the consumer, started to cause a lot of disruption in the industry, and those large brand houses that previously, marketed on blind trust were now kind of caught off guard. They either had to innovate the way those smaller brands were innovating to compete, or they had to acquire those businesses to compete.
A lot of really exciting new brands coming up that have been acquired or are looking to be acquired. But let's talk a little bit, Andres, about, you led this relaunch of ACE in the first quarter of 2019, a whole year before the pandemic hit, and the pandemic has accelerated some of these trends, I believe. You agree with that?
Yeah.
So take us back to what was going on at the end of 2018. You hit on some of it right there, but what did you see specifically that made you so confident that this was the right move? Because in retrospect, looking backwards, it has been, but take us back there, and then what some of the accelerators also were with the pandemic.
Absolutely. So that shift in the industry, the disruption that I'm referring to, sort of created urgent needs, and needs that these businesses had either to prepare themselves for M&A, or to get access to executive level talent that they couldn't yet afford, if we're talking about the startups. If you're the larger brands, you had to assess these smaller businesses and determine which ones could fit your portfolio. So we were operating these businesses differently. The industry was operating differently, and it was creating opportunities and skills gaps that FTEs couldn't meet quickly enough. And oftentimes even the role, because of the longevity of it, the requirement for flexibility, the access to certain skills, it didn't make sense for an FTE to be sort of the appropriate solution. And so that's where the idea for ACE was born. Is consumer packaged goods was at a juncture where this type of talent could best serve the industry, and become highly complementary to any full-time employee hiring strategy and talent plan.
No, and I got to tell you, your vision back in 2018, 2019, early 2019 when you launched, was exciting, and I was excited, but I was still a little apprehensive, especially on some of the more traditional roles, sales roles and things where companies had the mentality of it's got to be a full-time employee, an FTE as you refer to, that is representing our brand, and we need that. And then as soon as you and I and others within Protus and ACE really started to spend time with these companies and share this type of unique talent that has the ability to bring, VP level, SVP level, C-level skill set to an organization. To your point, sometimes these smaller organizations that are early stage, they don't have the cash flow and the money to be able to pay the fair compensation, but they need that kind of a deliverable. And so there's this blend of, okay, what do we do? Can we afford to pay this? Can we afford not to? And now having this talent that is 20, 30, 40, hours a week at a pay rate that is handsome,
Right.
But fair, allows them to get the kind of deliverables and skill that they need to move their business forward. So what the way that our industry, the consumer goods industry, has embraced this is powerful. So actually, let's talk about that. So let's talk about some of the benefits that you're seeing on the consultant side, and some of the benefits that you're seeing on the client, the company side.
Sure thing. So starting with the businesses, probably the biggest benefit of contingent workforce, and this isn't just for CPG, this is across the board, is access to skills above titles, above culture fit, right? One of the sort of more tedious processes of hiring for any full-time employee is assessing that cultural fit, compensating for title, compensating for a number of both compensating and understanding and learning about the candidate for a number of factors outside of just skills. And so, the contingent workforce allows these businesses to close skill gaps and do it in a very time sensitive fashion, also because of the speed and accessibility of these workers and the sort of lack of need to go through multiple interview process to assess all these other factors outside of skills. So that became has become a real sticking point for the industry, especially an industry which also goes by the term fast-moving consumer goods, right? So if you're in fast-moving consumer goods, you also need fast-moving talent to close skills gaps.
Can you quantify that? You've talked about speed a couple times. What are we talking about? How many days are we talking about?
A sure thing, Mike. So on average, we're providing qualified independent workers to our clients within 5 to 10 business days. And that is sort of regardless of level or skill set. That's everything from an associate analyst level, contractor to support a maternity or paternity leave, all the way up to a fractional chief sales officer that you're bringing in to assess a newly acquired sales organization and coach up their team and get them into a high-performing level. So
that's great. Yeah. Thank you for that. You just hit on another term that I'd like you just to spend a few minutes on. We hear fractional executive, fractional executive. Yeah. What does that mean?
A sure thing. So a fractional executive, in layman's terms, is a part-time executive, right? So you're bringing someone in that there's sort of a long-term commitment between the business and the executive that they will continue to support on a part-time basis. That could be 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week. Sometimes it might go up to 30. But the idea is to keep it in sort of a part-time commitment because that's where the cost savings is. On an hourly basis, you're sort of compensating these executives as they should be and adequate to their skills and experience previously in their careers. But having access to them on a part-time basis creates a cost savings.
No, it's great. Thank you for that explanation. So talk a little bit about the trends that you're seeing, right? You saw trends. That's what got us into the business the way that we are today. What trends are you seeing today?
Sure. So currently, 37% of the workforce identifies as an independent worker. And that's powerful because this arrangement has always been attractive to the businesses, right? So companies have always appreciated the flexibility of the contingent workforce, the access to skills without the concern for, culture fit, the speed of the contingent workforce, and that ability to kind of scale up and scale down as needed. That's always made sense. But the trend that really accelerated the functionality and where we are today in terms of the growth and the continued adoption of the contingent workforce is very much driven by the acceptance of the worker and interest of the worker in this type of work. So there are many benefits there as well, particularly in an environment where organizations continue to kind of lower their commitment to the full-time employee, right? Unfortunately, we don't see pensions anymore. We don't see very rich retirement packages anymore. And so the worker is starting to realize, well, I can work independently. Perhaps if I'm earning enough on an hourly basis, I can procure my own insurance, or I can work with, a staffing firm that employs me as a W-2 contractor, which we do at ACE, and provides me with benefits if I'm a full-time contractor. So there's more flexible work arrangements. There's a desire to work independently, autonomously, to choose when they get to work versus when they don't get to work. A bit of entrepreneurial drive in all of this, right? If you've taken your skills and you have the confidence to take on independent work, then you're a bit of an entrepreneur who's now taking your skills, and that's what you're marketing in the marketplace. That is what you're selling. And that those two parties sort of coming together, businesses always have had the desire and the appetite for contingent workforce solutions, and the workers now meeting them there. We have a bit of a perfect storm for that scenario.
No, that's incredible. 37% is a big number. I don't think most people would guess that number. So that's pretty powerful number. Mm-hmm. Can you speak a little bit to, right, the length of tenure of consultants and the length of tenure of FTEs?
Yeah, the gap is getting tighter. So, on average, a contractor is now closing in on a 2-year time frame for a contract, whereas the FTE, which used to be well north of a 3-year average tenure, is starting to drop below 3 years. So the lines are getting blurred. That doesn't mean that they are one and the same from a tenure standpoint. For instance, when organizations come to us at ACE, and we get this question all the time, at what point should I determine that a role is a contingent role, a contract role versus an FTE role? And my rule of thumb is that 2-year mark. If you look at a body of work and it's going to take more than 24 months to complete, it's likely that a full-time employee makes more sense. But if that whole body of work, project, assignment, whatever you want to refer to it as, is coming in below the 2-year mark, then the contingent solution may be the best one.
So let's stay with that. That's one real delineation between FTE or consultant, right? The length of time and
Absolutely.
or the estimated length of time of a
Hmm.
particular project. One of the things that I really enjoy when you and I get the chance, and we do this all the time, to sit down with either existing client partners or prospective client partners, is to just ask business questions. And when you're talking about their business, there's always a component of the workforce, right? That's going to
Yes.
go take care of whatever this company is trying to achieve with their brands and their structure and their growth and those types of things. What I love, though, is I love the fact that we, Protus and ACE, and the partnership and the relationship that we have, we can sit down, ask great business questions, listen, and then provide some recommendations around, well, this need sounds like it could and should be solved with an FTE
Hmm.
for these reasons. This need probably should be solved with a consultant for these reasons. And it just puts us in a great position to partner, to listen, and to collaborate. But other than length of tenure, what are some of the other dynamics and delineation points, I guess, as to whether a company should solve an opportunity with a consultant or an FTE? Any other components you'd like to share there?
There are a few. So first is the role essential and ongoing? If the role is essential and ongoing, and up to a full-time capacity in terms of what the business needs from the role, it's absolutely a full-time employee, right? So one way to think of it is that there should be pillars to a business that are sort of unshakable, and the business cannot grow without those pillars, without those foundational roles and functions. Um, Everything outside of that arguably could fall into that contractor realm. So is there a start date and an end date, right? So is this a project-based body of work? Is the role covering, any sort of leave, right? And therefore an additional headcount will not be created. Does work need to be done, but there is no headcount to create in the current fiscal year or calendar year? Even if the headcount is coming next year, perhaps we can't wait that long, right? So those are a few of the factors that I think outside of longevity are probably the most impactful.
Those are great examples. Those are great examples, and I could sit here and talk to you about this all day. I love it. So, but let's kind of wrap up a little bit by talking about what you see in
Hmm.
terms of the future of contingent workforce in 2024 and beyond. What are some of those things?
Sure thing. So I think there's a few areas, functions, where the contingent workforce has been most prevalent. uh, IT, finance, and HR probably jump out at me as historically being the functions where we've seen the highest adoption of contingent workforce solutions and contractors. I think going and this has already been a trend, but I think expanding even further, we're going to continue to see these solutions be applied to functions outside of finance, IT, and HR. That could be sales, it could be marketing, supply chain, very prevalent right now in our business. These are areas where historically businesses have not thought, maybe a contractor could make more sense, maybe a consultant could make more sense. But now they are. Now they're looking at their counterparts in finance, in HR, and in IT, and they're saying, hey, it's working for them. There's a lot of seems to be value there. There seems to be impactful work being done. So that's great to see. Another trend that we're seeing, this is more short term, is as volatility continues to grow in the sort of the perm hiring marketplace, you will see contracts extend longer. So, and this has a little bit to do with that contingent workforce enjoying this type of work and sort of choosing it over full-time employment. You're seeing less departures from contracts, right? So you're seeing less contractors leave their contracts early for a permanent position, particularly in a climate where there's some lack of stability, right? Because they're saying, I've got a good thing here. I'm in this contract. I enjoy this type of work. Why am I going to go make a move to a full-time position if that organization has had a layoff in the last 6 months? That starts to create some level of uncertainty and desire to kind of stay put if they're enjoying the work that they're doing. So I think that is another short-term impact that we'll see, and then just increased adoption across the board. We don't see any signs of this trend slowing, but just accelerating at this point.
No, it's outstanding. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I agree with all those comments and the supply chain, logistics, procurement components that are going on throughout the world, not just the consumer goods industry, but all industries. So I've definitely seen an uptick in compensation levels within that component for FTEs and for consultants,
Yes.
and an increased need for additional talent in that arena, even when the headcount has not been approved, right? The annual operating plan does not have for additional heads in whatever calendar or fiscal year that we're talking about. But it's pretty rare when I've had a conversation with a CEO or a COO, and we are talking about a talent, an FTE talent or a consultant that brings a certain skill set in that operational supply chain area, where they're not really willing to listen because they have things that they're thinking about from maybe a whiteboard perspective, or we wish we would have maybe had a little more depth or expansion in our AOP. So that topic is really, really hot in the marketplace right now.
Right.
Andres, thank you very much. Really
My pleasure.
insightful. And hopefully everyone was able to take away some of the dynamics and the trends that are going on in the workforce right now.
Absolutely.
So the world of work is definitely evolving. The contingent workforce is providing an overall change in the world of work. So whether you're an individual or a company, there are many options to you to be able to solve business problems and business opportunities. It's no longer a linear dynamic.
Exactly right.
It's got a lot of different solution components to it. So again, appreciate the time. Thank you very much. I'm Michael Bitar, and this has been Cracking the Code.